Hi, we're sitting here in the dining room, and I'm sitting here with Mike Roy. And Mike is somebody who's been a big part of our family for several years. I call him son, he calls me dad. Um, and I'm just really glad that we're having this opportunity to sit down and talk.
Hmm.
Mike, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my full name is Michael Patrick Roy. Um, I am 31, gonna be 32 here soon. My full official job title or job is just an appliance technician. And I pretty much just exist.
And you do a great job of existing. Can you tell me, you're from Denver, right?
Yes.
Tell me what it was like growing up in Denver.
Um, for the formative years, I think of it just kind of a normal life, but that's what anybody would really say about it. Honestly, for a while there, like I originally grew up. It's like while I was growing up, I grew up with my mom, my sister, and the like. My earliest memories were from a place called the like was the Mariposa Assisted Living program. Effectively, they were kind of townhouses, row houses, cheaply made concrete floors, concrete stairs. Um, not really all that much stuff. It was originally designed for like single mothers with multiple kids, kind of thing, or poor families, kind of assisted living type of thing. Um, good little neighborhood. Met up a bunch of kids, hung out with them. Um, Always playing around, always running around. I remember that I used to live by the rule, like by the rule of as soon as the street lights turn on, head home. So like I'd say that was like a solid 6 years there, easy. Maybe yeah, about 6 years. Now I think about it. Yeah. That's just in the formative years. Later on in life, with my mom changing multiple partners and whatnot, and eventually kind of like getting herself her it's like her husband or second husband, I think first husband on this one, but she we moved over to a house in the it's like near the Ruby Hill area next to a place called Godsman Elementary, and I went there for school and whatnot before I went to was like and we were there for a while and it was okay, more more of a kind of like a suburban neighborhood kind of thing, like still city neighborhood, but suburban. Got to be able to go out to different places, walk around. It was close enough to places where I could go to where I could walk to like Gen X places. Gen X is a clothing place, like a small supermarket type of thing. Kind of best way to put it, like Asian clothing store, I guess. Really, it's like it was pretty nice. Boys and girls clubs were there. Didn't go to that too often, but it was like always available. Same thing with a local kind of city park type of thing. So just hung out, did that type of stuff. Um, that was definitely the years where I was getting more into staying at home, video gaming, but also helping out mom with regalia. It was like making regalia, helping out my sister with her things of shawls and beadwork and all that jazz. So a bit of hands-on work and just kind of in general everything.
Yeah.
Mm. Let's see. After that, went to a place. Let's just say it was a messy. It was a messy leave between there, but we moved into a place near. Um, I think it was like Federal and Depew. It used to be an old Target area where it's now a Vasa Fitness. So we moved into the apartments behind there for a while, and yeah, after that moved over to the Muscalero Indian Reservation over in New Mexico for about a year, maybe less, and then moved back here with you guys, and then from there just actually living in my life with a family.
So Mike, also when you were growing up, I mean, you grew up with cerebral palsy, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. How did that affect you growing up?
Growing up, I just remember, especially in the first few years, that there was always a wall, I guess I'd put it. It's the best way I could describe it is like every time I tried running or tried moving everything, it was always as if there was a rock underneath my left foot, or if there was always something just slightly holding back my left arm when I was trying to like grab stuff or move things. And I noticed I wasn't being as balanced as other kids. Um, During the time when I was over in when I was like over in the Mariposa places, what my mom did is she took us to the local hospital, and they just informed her what was going on. She knew I had cerebral palsy, but we didn't really have like that knowledge of the sliding bar of differences or whatnot. So what was going on for me is that is that if you imagine both of your feet both pointing just straight forward as you would for normal walking, for me it was basically to the point where my left foot was always canted in at around, I'd say, about a 50-degree angle, with my left foot toe pointing towards my foot, or towards my right foot. So in order to counter that, what we had to do is I got Botox injection in my calf and thigh to straighten out my leg, and wore a cast for about 6 months. So in order to actually get it all kind of worked out. So for a while there, I didn't really see it much different. Motivation, or in quotes, motivation from family members to just keep sticking to stuff, keep forcing myself along, making sure that I was like, if somebody else was doing something, I should be able to do that myself, run at the same speed, move at the same speed, not trip as much. Mostly it was in the realms of like, it was always boiled down to there's no excuse. Um, that wasn't great, admittedly. As a kid, I just thought it was kind of unfair how I felt tired, but I still had to go and do stuff. I met a physical therapist. I don't remember her name. I just remembered she was a really nice lady. And what she told me was that it wasn't necessarily the effort that you put in. It was that little bit, like that little bit every time. So I may not be able to do it today with my arm, but I could do it eventually. So physical therapy became kind of an aspect of resistance bands, different things. And, and she,
Excuse me.
oh, it's all right. I remember she kind of described it as kind of like fidgeting. Like this was before fidget toys and everything. She was like, "All right, cool. Play with things with your left hand. You don't. It doesn't have to be something awesome." So it started off with softballs, and then baseballs, and then soccer balls to kind of maneuver the hand and dexterity movements and whatnot. Eventually, it was like I could move my fingers independently and treat them as if it was just a mirror of my other hand, and there's all that type of physical stuff. But from a raising, it's like from a raising like it just to me wasn't much different from anybody else. But a disability is as a disability is. So it's less of an income. It's like it's less of an impairment, more of just a different way of doing things.
And how does it affect you now?
Um, Kind of painful. I get spasms from time to time, internally speaking. Because of the birth defect itself, I also have this. It's like a hemiplegia in and of itself. Basically, just kind of means like a density of muscles. So right now, it's like every time I have like a particularly bad spasms, I have it's like I could like feel cartilage kind of crack and the like. Involuntary kind of stuff too. A good example is like the actual like the that musculature that kind of like, yeah, that kind of seizes up a little bit around the actual like rib cage area. I could feel it just compress in and of itself, so it makes it hard to breathe from time to time. Doesn't happen often. Happens mostly under stressful situations, or if I'm like irritated, angry, that type of thing. Um, but all over like physical movement and the like. I'd say if anything, it just makes shoes a pain to buy for. That's really it. Well, more specifically, like the five finger things that I like. It's straight up that my right foot is a 42, something like that. Well, my left foot's a 40. So it's just like a straight up like it's like 2 centimeter difference or something like that, or two. It's enough of a size difference that I have to try and adjust accordingly, or tighten down the left foot a little bit more just to make sure it actually fits. So yeah, that's oodles of fun.
Well, you do amazingly well. Just so folks know, Mike is strong as an ox, and I mean, he drives around, he works hard, he supports himself. Um, he helps us out all the time. He's just an amazing guy. And one of the most really amazing things about you, Mike, is you can figure out how anything works. What's that about? How did you get into that?
No, honestly, it came from my uncle. His name was John. Um, the main reason why I figured it out is because he always, at least with me, he always tried. He always tried to get things like gifts or and other like, and it was always like, admittedly, for most people it was junk, but things like portable radios, like those little small Walkman ones, larger radios, especially the ones with the old cathode tubes, and bikes and stuff like that. So he was able to bring some stuff, and he was able to brush off rust and things like that, and tried helping me kind of build things. Admittedly, a lot of my school age was basically trying to adjust accordingly because since money was tight, I had to figure out what was fun or what wasn't. So even as a kid, I had a really basic tool set and just fixed things and made things. Shocked myself more than a few times, but I think at the end of the day, it's like I just figured out how stuff worked because I just had to look into the process of it. Like the fundamental idea of one step improves the next step, improves the next step. So less in the realms of what is the end goal, but how does it start? That type of thing, and then the subsequent steps to get to that last bit. And then once I figured that out, once I figured that out, things just started kind of clicking together for electronics, water piping, all that jazz. So pretty much, I keep telling people, it's like if it runs, I could most likely figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, when you see something broken, you like or like a bulldog trying to figure that out. You just won't stop until you figure it out. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So how do you feel about being part of this family, and how did all that happen? How did you become like part of our family?
Um, how I feel about being part of this family is like it feels right, but it's also that level of like a great honor. I have no other really like better word of putting it. Like with the Roys and like the subsequent others, like secondary families and whatnot, the Young Bears, the Trujillos, all them, it always boiled down to like we were family but with a purpose. There was always that realm of like, all right, cool, are you a dancer, are you a maker, are you a spiritual leader or a tribal elder, that type of thing. And because I was the bastard son of an unwanted person who was also disabled. I was often enough ignored in my own family. Like, admittedly, the best role that I was able to pick up with during the time was the gopher, or the person who basically goes out and grabs, like, the materials needed, or, like, say, multiple times during, like, heavy winter storms or things like that. Even as a child, I had to go out and pick up suitcases, food, and the like when everybody else didn't want to or couldn't. So it was just something I kind of was used to. But when I came to this family, the lack of expectation was almost galling for a minute there. Like I always thought I had to do something to prove something to be something better, and that took a while to adjust to. And then now to realize that I could have somebody genuinely care for me without having an actual expectation behind it is indescribably solid. Is the best way I could put it. I always felt that like my sister and the it's like with my between my older sister and me, there's like connection of like we both went through something. It was less of brother and sister definitely, but definitely also in the realms of like survivor kind of situations. Like, oh, we've both been through the shit, we both know what's going on, we're both good to go. But to have a relationship based on a family where it's like, hey, we're just happy to see you and actually genuinely mean that is, again, something I am beyond happy with and absolutely terrified to leave, like for it to disappear. Like, that's another thing, too. It's like, because of that initial way of how I grew up, I always believed that if I didn't do these things, if I didn't meet those levels of expectations, even if they were harsh, that I would be left alone. And I had more than a few experiences where that was an actual thing. left underneath the bridge, being abused physically and emotionally, that type of thing. But like with you guys, it never happened. The closest I believe I've ever come to anything like that was just your disappointment when we were living when we were living on Sixth. Like that was the closest I ever got to it, and that genuinely hurt more. Like, and not to say that you were disappointed, but you're like, I could feel that you were moving to that level, and I needed to get a job and do these things and to be just a better person. And because of that, that did motivate me to do it. And God, it's just weird to think about, really, at the end of it.
Well, you don't have to prove nothing to us. Mike.
Well, yeah, I know, and that's the cool thing about it. But that's it too. It's like the real, or what I believe is the more real meaning of family is less in the realms of like actually having an expectation, but more along the lines of like we all are together and we love and care for each other for who we are or what we do. No judgments, no standards, no nothing. It's just in the realms of like, hey, let's all enjoy the moment and hell, even enjoy good food. That's it. And I didn't realize how much I was missing that until I finally had it, and now it's something I genuinely treasure. Um, as of how I got to this family, I genuinely think it was like because of my initial friendship with Andrew, and when we were in PS1. And admittedly, it's like the house on Sixth is where it was just closest to school, so we often enough hung out there and did all these things. But it was also the same place where I actually felt safe. Like like every time I went home to like the it's like I went home to like over the house on Zunai and had to eventually move to the place on Depew. Like it always felt a tad hostile. Like I was used to having my defenses up, protecting things, like even just kind of hiding random assets and things that I had, money, figures, or even anything I particularly cared about. Either kept it at school in a locked area, or usually the locker, or just straight up just got rid of it. If I didn't, it's like if I liked it, knew that it could be used against me, I immediately try to figure out a way of either do I sell it, do I destroy it, or do I forget about it, that type of thing. But it eventually went to the point where it's like after I got helped out with college and after I did all that stuff, like Andrew just like I just remember calling Andrew and like I don't have a place to go because I was being kicked out of the house over in the Muscalero Reservation because I think my mom just wanted to get rid of me. There I was 20 plus years old, I couldn't get back into college because I wasn't helped out enough to be able to figure out like, all right, cool, how do I get there, how do I even get back? And Andrew just gave me an opportunity to have a home. You gave me a room, gave me a roof, gave me food, and gave me love. And there's no good way of putting how much I genuinely needed something like that. I genuinely needed a family, a father, a mother. And man, there aren't words, just feelings.
Mike, you're an amazing guy, man, and we're so lucky. We're lucky to have you. um, so it worked out for us like just as much as it did you or more.
Oh.
Yeah, we really appreciate you. So Mike, what keeps you going all the time? What do you use for motivation? And life's hard, and you just keep on going, man, and don't worry about tomorrow too much. You take care of today. You do a really good job. What keeps you going?
Um, the most succinct way I think I could put it is the amalgamation of everything I've kind of learned up to this point from either weird sources, fantasy books, or the like. But I would say, like the three of the main core things that I've genuinely been into the realms of is avoidance of disappointment. Um, a quote from a character from, frankly speaking, the dumbest place ever, and finally just spite. So first, going into the realms of spite, like I'm not saying that in the realms of like, hey, I hate people, want to live things, and just live in that realms. It's more along the lines of like, for me, I lived enough of a yoke of my life to have that idea that there was always somebody who was going to tell me what to do and how to live. And now I'm existing in the realms of like, hey, I can now do what I wanted to do, be happy. And I realized that the best revenge that anybody could have is to live a happy life. No violence, no anger on that. Just live a life and live a successful that you deign for yourself, less for anything else. Um, Another one is the quote from a silly character. Oddly enough, Homer Simpson actually said something that just for me just became super profound. It was in the idea of stop blaming yourself. Blame yourself once for if you messed up or did something, and then move on. At the end of the day, you can blame yourself for everything over and over again and punish yourself for the same event over and over again. But if you do it once, accept that either you had responsibility or capability or culpability, then sure, maybe. But as a whole, it really does boil down to just accepting that some things just don't go well. And then finally, lack of disappointment is more along the lines of like, in and of myself, it's like to set up goals in the realms of I can't be disappointed with how things are. I could just adjust accordingly and try and make things that are better than they are before. If I'm disappointed with something, I have to analyze why am I disappointed with that? Was I disappointed with the result, the access to get to it, how everything is moving along with it? And instead of being angry and disappointed with it and always having that lump there, it's a weight on a scale that allows me to analyze what happened with it, how I could improve it, and how I could avoid doing that again. Or if I have to do it again, how can I make it so that that disappointment is mitigated as much as possible? So less of avoidance, more of, hey, consequence, like actions have consequences and consequences have consequences.
Man, again, Mike, you're an amazing guy. Um, Not many people could watch Homer Simpson and get something deep out of it.
Yeah, it was weird. It's like I'm just sitting there going, like, who the hell comes up with that?
And just your outlook is amazing. So finally, how do you see your future? What goals, what dreams, um, what hopes do you have?
um, when it comes to that, it's a bit of a mixed bag, to be perfectly honest. The stat, like the God, it's really weird to kind of think about it. It's always been to me kind of an amorphous thing, especially more recently. Um, Long-term thinking was not something that I was very good at, or arguably still not very good at. I could come up with counters to certain situations, exit strategies, things like that. Things that's more along the lines of if then type of situation, but not necessarily what to build up to. I do know that there's some things of like, hey, put money away, save for money, save for things, save for life, etc., etc. Create different backup plans, or create a nice little nest egg. The problem is that I don't really see myself with that level of a planning ahead. Um, Say, let's take the idea of like relationship and the like. I've only had one major personal relationship in the realms of like, in like being intimate or being with somebody like that, especially in the realms of wanting to start a family or wanting to do that. And that was a weird sensation to have in and of itself. But when it comes down to it, I really don't have much of an idea. And that's one of the things that I genuinely had to kind of come to accept, if you will. Like, I don't have to have a plan. I just have to be ready for it. So what I've been doing and what I've been trying to prepare for is in the realms of create myself a better environment for work, make sure that I myself am happy. Because if I can't make myself happy, then how am I supposed to make a partner or family or the like also happy as well? Because for all I know, I can be tomorrow meet somebody who happens to be the love of my life and also happens to have a pre-started family. At that point, I just have to figure out how to insert myself in a way that is not a monumental dick move. But I don't know. That's kind of how I'm viewing the future. Less of something to be like, this is how I see myself on a shining hill of awesome. It's more along the lines of like, cool, how can I make it so that I am not a bad addition? As it's like, as negative as that may sound, it's also like, hey, my life is just as changing as anybody else's.
Yeah, it doesn't sound negative at all. It sounds real like positive and flexible. You're just ready to move into whatever happens.
Mm-hmm.
Ready for what's next.
Oh yeah.
Well, Mike, again, you're an amazing guy, and I'm very glad that you're part of our family. And I love you very much. And
Love you too, Dad.
it's been a pleasure spending some time with you here.